What the heck is being put in our ground beef? We've already been seeing issues with our food system prior to 2026, but now you've got Donald Trump saying that he's going to allow 300,000 metric tons of mysterious ground beef to be let in. And this is going to happen over the next 90 days to curb the ground beef issue that we have. This is bringing a lot of red flags up for people because, for one, we don't know where this mystery meat is coming from. And currently, there's a lot of speculations in regards to whether or not this meat is horse meat or if it's being imported from Argentina. Yes, you heard me right, horse meat. This story is crazy, y'all. If you don't know what's going on with the wild horse situation, currently, thousands of wild horses are being rounded up and they're being chased by helicopters into pens where they're being gathered up and slaughtered. There have been many reports that wild horses that were federally protected at one point are now being rounded up and being sent to slaughterhouses to have their meat shipped off for $25 a pound. So when I ask this question about what the heck are we eating or what's in our ground beef, I truly mean what the heck are we eating? Because people are starting to speculate, what if the ground beef that we're getting in the store isn't ground beef at all and has been replaced with substitutes that we have no idea about?
Wild. I came across this lady's video where she was claiming that male cattle at the time of slaughter are lactating at an alarming rate. Males are lactating. I'm sorry, what? She claims that it's due to them being pumped with hormones. And in American cattle, they are pumped with a lot of estrogen, basically to fatten them up, but apparently it's doing more. And then we have this herbicide called atrazine, which is very widely used in America. It's not only sprayed on our crops, but also on organic crops as well. And they did a study on atrazine where they put a male frog in it and it turned into a female. Interesting.
Talk about Donald Trump's new beef bill. So we're going to be getting 100,000 tons of beef from Argentina. And you might say, oh, I love Argentinian beef. This is not going to be the good Argentinian beef because we're trying to make this affordable. So what they're going to do is they're going to give these cows hormones so that they grow quickly. So instead of taking 36 months, they'll be like 18 months to processing, which makes cheaper. Remember, anytime they're trying to make something more affordable, it means they're cutting corners and they're trying to make extra money for themselves, usually. So just follow the money. You'll figure it out. But they're going to be giving these cows hormones because they'll be living in probably very cramped conditions and being fed really poor food. They're going to have to be given antibiotics on top of that. So this beef will have antibiotics and hormones and not very good feed. They're not going to be super healthy cows. It's just, that's just how it is. That's just what happens, right? I'm just stating facts right now. And then on top of that, then they're going to go to processing. And when you process beef, when you process this much beef, a lot of times in 1 pound of ground beef, there's about 14 cows. On top of that, not only is there 14 different cows in this 1 pound of ground beef, there's parts of the cow that you really don't want in your ground beef, and it's in the ground beef. And then they oxygenate it to make it pink. They put natural flavors in it because we all know what that is. And they're going to make it, that's going to be your affordable ground beef. I don't know about you. I don't want any of that in my ground beef. Ground beef is so healthy when it's grass-fed, grass-finished. It's so good for you. This ground beef is actually not going to be good for you. So you're going to think you're going to be getting a certain profile of, what do you think? Why is my brain blanking? Nutrients. Sorry, my brain is blanking. You're going to be thinking you're going to be getting a certain amount of nutrients. It's not going to be in this ground beef, bro. I don't know how I feel about this. I am not about my ground beef having hormones in it. We have enough hormone issues in this country. We're all trying to cut back on all the different kinds of things, but then they're just going to put it into our beef for us. That's great. That also creates extreme environmental issues because those cows are now pooping and peeing hormones, which are going into the water stream. We already know this. It's there. It's happening. And they claim it's such a small amount that it's not going to affect you and it doesn't affect the water. If it's that many cows and if it's that much, we're eating beef that much, like, come on, I don't know. Anyways, I think that you should buy from a local farmer. Buy from a local farmer. That's the only way to ensure that you're getting grass-finished, grass-fed, grass-finished, no hormones, no antibiotics. You're getting a healthy cow with all the incredible, incredible nutrients that beef has. Buy from a local farmer. And if, honestly, if you cannot do that, at least buy organic beef. At least buy organic beef. There's no hormones allowed in organic beef. So that's at least one thing that is incredible. So anyways, Woo! Hey, don't kick my milk bucket, girly. Okay, I'm gonna go. She's mad I'm talking. Bye.
They to put it in the meat, and by it, I have no idea what is in this ground beef because the USDA will not tell us. However, they said if you do eat this particular ground beef, that you need to go and see a doctor immediately, and they have updated the recall to the highest level possible, but they won't tell us what's in the meat. Pick up the phone and stop for everything you haven't heard about, but you need to know about. Look, I was trying to tell y'all about this the other day, and they kept taking down my post, but it's been reported in the mainstream media now, so it is what it is. There are 30,000 pounds of raw ground beef that were imported from Argentina, okay? The company is Corte Argentina. The use-by dates are September 15th through the 20th. If you got this meat, baby, do not eat it. It's contaminated. What is it contaminated with? We don't know because they won't tell us. But they said if you eat the beef, go seek medical attention immediately. What the hell is going on? Child, I still ain't forgot that this administration sent $40 billion down there to Argentina. And I guess they turn around and start buying their little rotten infected meat too. Anyway. And the salmonella eggs are back in the news. So they have upgraded the risk of the salmonella eggs to a level 1. The sell-by date of these eggs is by August the 17th. So technically, these eggs could be in your refrigerator right now. The eggs were sold throughout the southern United States and the southeastern United States. There are millions of dozens of eggs on recall. This affects the brown eggs and the white eggs, cage-free eggs. And these eggs were sold through big retailers and brands such as Kroger, Simple Truth, Brookshire's, Country Mornings, and Sunups. So if you buy eggs from any of those places and you're not sure because you don't have the egg container in your refrigerator anymore, babe, just throw them away and go get you some new eggs. Farm that these salmonella eggs came from is called Midwest Poultry Farms, and it's a Texas farm. Are we noticing a pattern here?
Donald Trump is having serious issues with his meat supply in the United States of America and is bringing in mystery meat from other nations right now, infuriating MAGA. So several things are happening. Number one, America's meat supply is struggling and beef prices in the United States are rising. And so what he did today was say, well, I'm going to import hundreds of thousands of pounds of beef into the United States and price cap the beefs. Socialism. Well, farmers, MAGA farmers specifically, have erupted saying, we don't want this. We want you to use our beef that we're producing. Well, Trump doesn't have enough beef, so he says we have to get it from elsewhere. But he won't tell anyone where he's getting this beef from. So Americans may soon be eating beef, mystery meat, from countries they don't know where it's coming from, beef from imported from areas that may have, I don't know, food safety issues? Ring a bell? And so we're in a situation where the price of beef is high because of tariffs. He's admitting that. He's importing beef from elsewhere. We don't know where the beef is coming from. MAGA's upset about it. And so he has some issues right now. Spread the word. Follow for more. More and more wild horses are quietly being rounded up by Donald Trump and his administration and being sold off to be slaughtered and processed for meat. The New York Times revealed that in 2025 alone, thousands of wild horses were sent to slaughter. The administration is utilizing a legal loophole that allows them to sell these Mustangs to slaughterhouses. A lot of people have had a lot of questions about it, so let's talk about it. Slaughtering wild horses is illegal in the United States. But what the Bureau of Land Management under Trump is doing is rounding up Mustangs, rounding up these wild horses, then selling them to a slaughterhouse, for example, one in Ohio. They end up on trucks who are then sent out overseas potentially to be slaughtered and processed for meat. It was very rare. It doesn't happen often. But now thousands and thousands of horses every year under Trump are being slaughtered. So in 2025 alone, that's 3,700 horses. Just be aware because this is happening. Spread the word.
Administration is rounding up
it's new now. The Trump administration is rounding up America's wild horses by helicopter and then secretly sending them through a pipeline where they end up being slaughtered and then sold abroad for meat. So slaughtering wild horses, which are symbols of American freedom, is actually illegal. Congress has them protected, which is why the Trump administration came up with this insane loophole to curb populations. First, they use low-flying helicopters to chase herds of thousands of horses in the West into traps. And you can see from these pictures how they actually do that. The horses are then loaded onto trucks and taken to massive government holding facilities where they're treated horribly. The kicker is that this actually costs taxpayers $100 million a year, so we are paying for all of this. According to incredible reporting from the New York Times, even though it costs so much to track and wrangle these horses, they're being sold for as low as $25 because the government wants to get rid of them. And it's because once the Bureau of Land Management sells a horse to a private buyer, it's no longer federally protected. The New York Times found that so many horses sold through the system have ended up in the slaughter trade, where they're ultimately killed and sold for meat. And it gets crazier. This idea was specifically outlined in Project 2025. I don't know what MAGA has against wild horses, but the project explicitly calls for the government to dispose humanely of excess wild horses. But I don't know how humane this is. Federal documents have talked about reducing herds by using sharpshooters and building gas chambers. The Trump administration's reason for all of this is that wild horses reproduce too quickly and take up available food and water. But this brutal system instead is inhumane and also really expensive, so what's the point? But this is all just so classic Trump. Take a complicated problem, label the humane solution as too expensive, and then call the cruelty efficiency. Both the Newsgirls and Jezebel will continue reporting on these underreported actions by the Trump administration, so follow to stay in the loop.
And apparently, we put alarms on our steaks. I have never seen that. That's insane.
Well, folks, we finally got some details on that 300,000 tons of magic beef that Trump said he was going to come up with, and it is way worse than you thought it was. This is Old Texas Paul. Hope your coffee is as good as mine. Hell, I hope it's better. Yeah, it's a lie. It's a lie. There is no 300,000 tons of beef that Trump magically found somewhere that he's going to import. No, that's not happening. This does nothing to deal with the supply and demand problem that is making beef so high. See, when this was announced, I was like, bullshit. Where are you? The only way to get additional beef is to slaughter additional cattle. No beef producing country, has excess cattle right now. They're all in the same boat we are. They're all short of cattle. U.S. herds are at historic lows. Now, did ranchers make money in the beginning of this when they were selling their herds off because beef prices were high? Yes. But it's been sustained for so long because of, idiotic policy that now they have been completely unable to rebuild their herds. That's global. There is no excess 300 tons of beef laying around to import. What Trump actually did was he stripped away the trade agreements that we had that were protecting our ranchers right at the time when they are most vulnerable because their input costs have gone astronomically high. Diesel, feed, pharmaceuticals, everything. Transportation is all historically high. They are not rolling. They are not the hole in the bucket. It's not. The corporations are making the most money on this, not the ranchers. And their protections just got stripped away.
Now, let's go more in depth about the beef crisis itself. America has been dealing with a cattle shortage issue. There have been reports that it's fell to its lowest level in the last 75 years. And that to me is interesting because I've always asked this question: how are they able to supply so much meat to people constantly? I've already been speculating that our meat hasn't been necessarily 100% what it's been described for a minute. And naturally, since there's less cattle available, that means ground beef is way more expensive. I guess to curb this ground beef issue, Trump's solution is to give us horse meat. Now, the Trump administration is reporting that they're going to sell this mystery meat for 25% lower than the market price. Now, cattle groups have been coming out and speaking on this, and they have been saying that this is going to make it even more difficult for them to rebuild their herds. And here's where Argentina comes in this. Earlier this year, they allowed 80,000 metric tons of beef to come in from Argentina. So the speculation of the beef coming from Argentina isn't coming from out of nowhere. We've already seen them do this. And they've already been supplying us beef, but here's where the problem comes in. This meat is not being inspected, and there's going to be so many issues with the cattle that come from Argentina that it's not even going to be worth you eating ground beef. You're not going to get any of the health benefits that you would naturally get from eating regular ground beef. This beef that's supposed to be imported is not going to be high quality beef. It's going to be probably the worst beef that you want to eat. So now we're going to be possibly looking at more food recalls on top of the ones that we've already been having with eggs and all of the other produce that are out there. But it becomes this thing of like, what is happening truly with America? Like, you can't even trust food. And we knew this already, but now it's like they're putting it in our face. They're making it so obvious. Hey, you can't trust anything that you eat in this country. And then let's talk a little bit more about the wild horse situation. I think this is something that people need to know more about and be talking about more. The Bureau of Land Management, they manage millions of horses on public land. When the government feels like there's way too much in a particular area, they do this thing called a gather. In many gathers, helicopters are used to drive horses towards trap sites. Then the helicopter hovers over the horses behind them and pushes them in a particular direction they want them to go in. And once they're trapped, they're loaded up and taken away from the land that they were living in. Imagine being a wild horse minding your business and a random helicopter comes from God knows where and sends you off into like a random trap to God knows where. And the BLM says that this is to manage the wild horse population. In 2025, BLM actually sold approximately 3,700 wild horses and sold them for as little as 25 bucks. And we're talking about federally protected horses, y'all. And they're taking taxpayers' money to fund this, around 100 million a year. Project 2025 mapped all of this out for us. Project 2025 specifically outlined what was going to happen with the wild horse situation, and we're watching it unfold right in front of our eyes. It talked about the government being able to dispose of wild horses in a humane way, which I don't know if that's necessarily happening. And it just feels like every single day we're living in an episode of what Project 2025 was projecting us to be living in. But what do you guys feel about this ground beef situation? I know I'm staying away from ground beef for a very long time, but let me know in the comments, have you been noticing anything weird with the ground beef in your grocery stores? What do you think this mystery ground beef is going to be? Leave it below and I will see you in the next one.